What's going on, FanDuel friends? Ryan Williams here from FanDuel. You can find me on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. And we are here with you to talk about the Monday night preview. And I say we because I am joined by my friend, Mr. Jim Sannes. You can find him on Twitter at Jim Sannes. His name, JimSannes. For those of the people who aren't following you already, Jim. How you doing, guy?
I'm good, man. We had week 1 yesterday for the main slate, and it was one of those weird ones because I feel like something that I can usually, like, one of my strengths, I would say, for DFS is running back selection. Where I struggle is narrowing down my player pool at quarterback, and it was the exact opposite this week. My running backs were awful, and the quarterback stuff went well. So I don't know. I'm like rattled because it was so bad with the way that went. Like, James Robinson was bad, obviously. I had a lot of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which I thought was like, oh, okay, cool. We'll get a good tournament selection, good tournament pivot, stuff like that. Didn't go well, so I've been better. How are you?
I can say that I've been better as well. Close to nearly 100% exposure to Raheem Mostert at 6,100. It just seemed like it would be a plus EV move to do that in that game script. And then obviously tilting Elijah Mitchell, getting a touchdown, Jermichael Hasty getting a touchdown to start the game, and the game script just going in heavy San Francisco fashion for at least 3 quarters, right? So that was tough. But, that's why we play the game, right? To give ourselves a chance. And so that was fun. And we want to give you guys a chance here on the FanDuel channel as we talk about the single game Monday night slate. We can also talk some fun bets with you guys on the FanDuel Sportsbook, as there's very intriguing things. And I just kind of want to start off, Jim, because this is kind of our first time talking about a single game slate as it relates to FanDuel. And so how do you attack these slates when we're talking about on FanDuel? You have the MVP position, and then you only have 4 other positions that you can plug and play. And the pricing, which is nice, does not change whether you have somebody at the MVP spot or you're just using them in the flex. So how do you kind of attack single game slates as it relates in general?
Yeah, I'm guessing this is probably similar to you, but it all revolves around trying to identify the way the game will play out. Like, I think that the way that I like to say it is make an assumption. And I want to make an assumption around how I think the game will play out. So, like, you look at the bookmaker info for tonight, it says, okay, Ravens probably going to win by 3 to 4 points, something like that. If you think that the bookmakers are right, you build a lineup around that assumption. The problem is everyone probably will build around that assumption. So I think that, the way that you can think about things is, okay, how would I fill out a lineup if I assume the Ravens just paced the Raiders? How would I fill out a lineup if I assume the Raiders win in a blowout? Like, I think that just finding different paths and finding different ways this game can play out, that's the key thing. And that influences MVP obviously a lot, but also, like, you're not putting a Raiders kicker in a lineup where you assume that the Ravens win by 30 points. So I think that's the first thing for me, is identifying how I think the game will play out and deciding who benefits from that scenario.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the huge thing about playing these single game slates, is just you have to be able to predict game flow. You have to be able to talk yourself into a scenario to where you can see things playing out. And that's kind of what makes things fall into place for your lineups, right? Because you're not going to be able to have, I think, Baltimore is going to explode and just, I'm going to take all Baltimore guys and just 1 or 2 Raiders guys. But what happens if the Raiders are in a situation like the Lions were with San Fran, as we were talking about that earlier, and then Lions guys all of a sudden start smashing? That truly flips the slate on its head when you're talking about single game slates. So definitely want to talk about the situations, and we can start at MVP. I see the questions already rolling in. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat right now. Savan asking about Mark Andrews at MVP. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about Mark Andrews. And we could already start there. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat joining Jim and I. So we got a situation here, Jim, with the Ravens where I'm just going to say it. I think Lamar's a lock. I think Lamar on a single game slate is always a lock. I don't think he's a lock at the MVP necessarily, but just because of the dynamic of the backfield is obliterated. I know that Tyson Williams is going to be a guy that we'll talk about later, and he's going to get love, and we don't know what's going to happen with all these other running backs they brought in to kind of replace JK and Gus Edwards. But when you're talking about somebody like Mark Andrews, I think that he's going to benefit with the running back situation being depleted because of just how utilized he is in this offense. I mean, the targets have been there a plethora from 2 years ago. Last year, he kind of, it wasn't really there for him, but I think that the offense will kind of run through Mark Andrews. And we know that the Raiders, just looking at the stats over the years, have been obliterated by tight ends across the board. So you love that for Mark Andrews, who could really, should get a lot of targets, could see 2 touchdowns in this game, and could be viable at the MVP spot.
Yeah, and I think the other thing he benefits too from is the fact that he's been healthy, whereas like there's no Rashad Bateman, obviously. Sammy Watkins has been banged up the entirety of, like, he's healthy and playing now. Marquise Brown, same thing. But like Brown missed a lot of camp, Watkins missed a lot of camp, and Mark Andrews has that baked in rapport with Lamar Jackson. So if we're talking about the way you're ranking out the pass catchers on this team, I think that it's Mark Andrews in a tier of his own. And I'm not sure if there's a full tier, like if there's a gap tier between him and Marquise Brown, but like it's pretty dang close. I would say, like, you could say that Brown is in that the tier beneath him, but like I think it's like 1.5 tiers between those two guys. So I think that he benefits, like you said, from the running back situation, but also does benefit from the fact that he's been healthy and the other guys really haven't. So I think that if you're looking at ways to stack up the Ravens, I do think that Mark Andrews is the first place you go. The question is, how much will that be consensus? Like, how much will people decide, okay, I've got to go Mark Andrews because of the factors we listed? And does that make it a situation where you use Marquise Brown in order to try to be a little bit different or what? But like, I'm not getting a firm read on that. So I feel like if I'm just playing things straight up, it's hard not to go Mark Andrews for the exact reasons you listed.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your screen, Jim, and having it up there so that the people who are watching this live can see along with us. But as you're building the roster, things will kind of fall into place with you. And so, again, we're talking about, okay, so you play Lamar Jackson at MVP. What are you expecting from him? You're expecting a huge rushing game, and you're expecting pretty much him to throw the touchdowns, but maybe it's 1 touchdown to Mark Andrews, 1 touchdown to Marquise Brown, 1 touchdown to Sammy Watkins or Tywan Lawless or all these other guys who could be Devin Duvernay, who are in the potential pool of receiving a touchdown from Lamar Jackson. As we know, in the past, the Ravens have loved to spread the ball out, and you can never dictate
very
who's going to
frustrating.
get that 2 touchdown score, which is why I just say Lamar's a lock, right? Because he's the catalyst of the offense and going to, push that bill forth. But I do want to talk about some of these other pass catchers and what we can do from the other side on the Raiders side of things. I know Nick in chat was asking about Darren Waller, and Savan also was asking about Derek Carr for MVP. So when we're talking about a situation where, okay, the Ravens put up points in this game, the over-under in this game is over 50. So Vegas is expecting points to be scored in one way, shape, or form. Now, do we think that's going to be 40-10 from the Baltimore winning on the Raiders, or can the Raiders make this respectable? And also, not to bury the lead here, but Josh Jacobs has been ruled questionable yesterday on Sunday. He's dealing with an illness. Now, the Raiders are 100% vaccinated. At least that's what's been reported on. So we don't think there's a COVID issue. And I saw before we came on the show, Jim, that he's expected to play. I don't like Josh Jacobs in this matchup. And so for me, I am inclined to build teams that do have Derek Carr and 1 or 2 pass catchers just to be differentiating my lineups. Because I do think that there's a scenario here where they're not going to be able to get Josh Jacobs or Kenyon Drake or whoever else their 3rd string backup running back is, who probably will see the field because John Gruden. But I do think there's a scenario where I do want to get Carr and Waller exposure together, because I think that's the sure way to get the points there. And so I'm not going to be inclined to not have a Ravens captain, because I think they heavily outscore the Raiders here, but I am inclined to get Derek Carr into my lineups.
So if you go, like, let's say you're building out well, I'll call it a Raiders assumption lineup, where you assume that the Raiders like kind of roll and have a really impressive game here. Do you go to Carr at your MVP? Do you skew towards Waller? How do you play that one? Because that's the one that with the Ravens, you just kind of go Lamar. I think that for the Ravens, I would consider Tyson Williams and like if I assume that they just obliterate them, because maybe, Tyson gets the variance at the goal line, stuff like that. But with the Raiders, I have a hard time deciding, can I go anywhere other than Carr and Waller? And it's tough for me to say yes. Like, I can't really find a concrete route elsewhere, because Jacobs Probably going to lose some high leverage targets to Kenyon Drake, which is a bummer. That caps his upside, limits his viability as MVP. So I feel like the Raiders are kind of whittled down to just Carr and Waller. Do you see anyone else you could consider potentially there in like a Raiders assumption lineup, or?
No, and it just is. That's what's the fun thing about playing the single game slates, right? And we'll talk about the lineups. And I wanted to, at some point, I do want to pick your brain, Jim, on how you feel about contest selection when it comes down to the single game slates, because it really just depends on the field, right? Like if you're playing against 20,000 lineups, you know what I'm saying, and you're building a team for single game, then you need to have some exposure to Carr MVP lineups or Darren Waller MVP lineups in the case that, the Ravens maybe get this game or can, put the heat on Lamar to force him to throw. And that's maybe what might keep him out of the MVP spot, but still viable in the lineup. I just can't do it. And I'm more of a single game or single entry player, especially on the single game slate. So I'm not necessarily cash game building, so to speak, because it's still tournaments and I can do that in my flex. But as far as the MVP goes, it's like I need the surefire points there. I don't want to guess. I don't want to have these outliers. The
other reason why you do that, I think for this slate specifically, Ryan, the reason why that line of thinking is valid is because if you're looking at like the distribution of scoring for this game, like how often is Lamar Jackson the MVP, like the highest scoring player for this game? I don't have that number. Like my colleague Brandon Gadula probably does have that number, and he can tell you, hey, it's X% of the time. I don't have that. He's smarter than I am, but it's a large chunk of the time Lamar Jackson is the highest scoring guy on the slate. So I feel like for me, talking about single game, I skew your direction where I prefer single entry. I prefer single entry and then making a different assumption around the way the game will play out. Like if everyone assumes that, so like the perfect example was Thursday night for the Cowboys Bucks, you do single entry and then just, assume the Cowboys win. They didn't, obviously. So like that didn't play out, but Dak scored well, Amari scored well, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, Brandon actually has Lamar Jackson 49.9% likely to be the highest scoring guy. Wow.
I love it. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks for joining in and joining the chat, because that's actually actionable information there.
And that's actually pretty crazy because Brandon did a piece last year for numberFire that looked at actual data showing how often a quarterback is MVP versus running back. And running back, I think, was 37%, quarterback around 33%. And that kind of shows you that a quarterback like Lamar is more viable MVP in this game where both teams have spread out market shares. Like, we're not going to get a true featured back in Tyson Williams. He's not going to be getting all the work for the Ravens. Josh Jacobs obviously won't. Derek Carr's not a big rushing guy. So I think that in this game specifically, that makes it hard to deviate. So like if we're doing single entry, Ryan, I feel like you do put Lamar at MVP. You kind of suck it up and take that the roster right there, and then just do what you can to deviate elsewhere. I think that's kind of the way that I'd be looking to play things here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's enough for me to go on. And then you're looking at just the Raiders defensively. And again, this is 2001, week one. We don't have a lot. It's hard to take the 2020 data and use it here in 2021. But I do think there are some things that we can pull from 2020. And, you're looking at the Raiders defense. They gave up the fourth most FanDuel points to the running back position. And then if you kind of think about it, right, Jim? So, okay, that's the running back position. So people might be inclined to play Taysom Williams. They're talking about giving him a lot of run. Well, we also know Lamar is a runner in his own right in and of itself. So how much does that factor into being Lamar in that category of the running back position with him being a rushing quarterback? I think that's favorable to him. They also allowed 20 points to the to quarterbacks on FanDuel if you're looking at FanDuel scoring. So I just think that's why it just makes him a slam dunk play.
Well, the crazy thing too is this is something I was looking at for the prop betting stuff, but like I was thinking I wanted to go under Lamar's rushing yards, which is 72. Let's see here, 72 and a half. But like, so like, I think the under is in play there, but like, how crazy is that number that his yardage prop that's what it says as far as, how viable this guy or how valuable this guy is for fantasy. I know it's not like breaking news, but like, it just boggles my mind how high his prop is. Again, I take the under on 72 and a half, but like, I think if we're talking about this from a single game perspective, there is a reason his prop is 72 and a half. And it's because he's Lamar freaking Jackson. And that translates well for fantasy.
Yeah, I actually love getting the over on that line, Jim, to be honest. But I also like Taysom's at 60.5, and I
Yeah.
do like that to hedge it, just to say that like somebody is going to be explosive in this game on the running side, and taking a shot at either one of those two guys, I think is going to bring back dividends in your bankroll if you do that. Shout out to Devontae, who's joining us in the chat. He's on Facebook, and he's asking about Latavius Murray. Is he a good play now? Listen, because I try not to buy into coach speak too much, but just because of the fact that they've gone out of their way to talk up about Taysom Williams, even in the preseason and then leading into this game, I understand, they bring in these guys in off the street, Latavius Murray and Le'Veon Bell, and they just haven't had enough run in the offense. I just don't think that if you're playing again in the large field tournaments and you see a route into some of these guys getting going, or, Taysom isn't the guy and they need somebody else, sure. But in single entries, I just can't bring myself to play any other one of these guys at the running back position.
I think the interesting question for you, Ryan, would be like, how do you rank out the non-Lamar Ravens? Like, how are you ranking them between Tyson Williams, Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown? I feel like for me, and this might be stupid, but I feel like I kind of want to put Tyson Williams number 1 on that list, and I'm fine making stupid decisions. I've done it plenty of times in my life, but I'm kind of okay buying into the hype because he's the one guy who has been here this entire summer. He was getting talked up before Justice Hill got hurt. He was getting talked up before Gus Edwards got hurt. He was getting buzz, and now you're bringing in Latavius Murray, who couldn't beat out Tony Jones. You bring in Le'Veon Bell, who was probably fishing or something like that, like a couple weeks ago. I think that, to me, and they're going to be efficient as a rushing team too. So like, I kind of feel like I want to put Tyson Williams first of that trio. Like, where do you stand with those guys?
Yeah, so I think that by far and away, I will not be making a lineup without Mark Andrews. I just think that it's Mark Andrews' season. I loved him, was drafting him everywhere in best ball. Lamar's actually my MVP pick, so that's why this is even more fun to do this single game slate here for the Ravens and Raiders game. But I think Mark Andrews would be my 1. And then, to be honest with you, Jim, because I'm talking about Lamar at captain and because I'm so high on him from the rushing standpoint, I probably am looking to maybe avoid Taysom Williams. Just because in the single entry field, I think that's what people are going to say. I'm going to take Lamar, I'm going to take Taysom, and I'm just going to get all those points there.
Right.
And then figure it out elsewhere. And I'm saying, okay, who's another pass catcher that I might be able to lean on? And this is going to sound disgusting, but I think we do have to think about Sammy Watkins in this case. So rookie Rashard Bateman's on the IR, right? And what do we say the past couple of years about week 1 is that's Sammy Watkins' bread and butter. Okay? This dude's been putting up explosive numbers when he was with KC. He had the 9, 198 and 3 line in 2019, and then comes back in 2020, goes 7 for 82 and 1 again. Now that's with Patrick Mahomes. That's with the explosive offense of Kansas City. But still, you like the fact that he's going to be in here. I think they're going to be utilizing him on the field. And you look at that from the Raiders standpoint. And last year, like I said, you can't always maybe pull from last year, but last year they were giving up numbers in bunches to the slot. And you're looking at a player in Sammy Watkins who was running almost 40% of his snaps in the slot when he was with KC. Now, if that translates here in the Baltimore game, I think we can talk ourselves into a decent shot where Sammy Watkins can take one to the house. I mean, look at a guy like Van Jefferson last night in the single game with the Bears and the Rams, really opening up the slate there, Jim. And that's what I want in single game entries like this, is to have a player that's explosive enough to really do some damage that not too many people will be on.
Well, the other thing too is you're taking advantage of uncertainty. And we talk about uncertainty as being a negative all the time. Like that's something that, like, it's okay. This is risky. It's volatile. But like in DFS, it's actually good. You want volatile situations if those volatile situations have the possibility to have like a high end, like a ceiling. And Sammy Watkins at $8,000 on a new team who is tied to a very good quarterback, should probably have better uses than he had. He's not competing with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. He's competing with, Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, which again, they're fine, but it's not Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. So I think that's what makes things interesting here, is that it is an ambiguous situation. We don't know how things will break. I feel like you were alluding to with Van Jefferson, we should try to take advantage of those situations. And use those guys. Because, like, sure, it might bust, but, like, who cares? Like, I know that sounds like flippant, but, like, we have to be okay taking those chances if they come with a good ceiling. And I think that with Watkins specifically, there is a ceiling there.
Right. And again, the receiving core has kind of, I mean, Sammy Watkins was missing time in the offseason with, dealing with some injuries. So was Marquise Brown. Like we said, Rashad Bateman, he's on IR. So this receiving core has not really been intact through the offseason. And so that's where it really becomes hard to parse the names, but they are names, right? So I think you see Hollywood Brown, for most people, they're saying, I have Lamar Jackson. I'm going to take a shot on Marquise Brown because he's the explosive wide receiver, but they haven't had a guy like Sammy Watkins to pair up with him as well, who's also explosive. So that's what, we're not dealing with Miles Boykin and Willie Snead in this offense anymore. So that's what makes it fun to take. Looking into the chat here, Jim, I see Aaron, who's talking about he wants help avoiding the bad chalk. He also was getting on me on YouTube. Watkins is so dusty. I get it, Aaron. He is dusty, but we only need him to not be dusty this one time, and then we don't have to talk about him anymore because he'll win us all the money. But let's go over. You were talking about earlier in the show on the Raiders side of things, and if we are playing Derek Carr, we do need to talk about this wide receiver group here, where we're looking at guys like Hunter Renfrow, Bryan Edwards, Henry Ruggs. Hunter Renfrow was probably the most reliable receiver last season for the Raiders, but that's because Bryan Edwards just wasn't himself and he wasn't always healthy, and Henry Ruggs was dealing with his own health issues as well too. But when he was on the field towards the end, we saw that explosiveness come to light. And when we're talking about a guy like Sammy Watkins on the other side, I think that Henry Ruggs outside of Darren Waller is probably my favorite play. I do have Bryan Edwards going in fantasy, so I will have him on a team just for that sake. But from a point standpoint and wanting to be able to attack the field, there's no Marcus Peters in this game for Baltimore, which is going to affect the game in some way, shape, or form for this secondary that is stout on the other three pieces outside of him for the starters. But what's your lean on the Raiders situation and what they could possibly do to stay in this game?
I'm pretty inclined to go what you said and go Henry Ruggs probably first over Bryan Edwards. And I think that part of that is because Edwards has gotten a lot of positive buzz from camp, which does, I don't know, this is anecdotal, probably should check this, but like, it seems like a lot of times training camp buzz does translate to the regular season. You will see guys who get positive buzz, they will wind up getting usage in the year. Because if you earn the coach's trust during preseason, during training camp, it's going to eventually translate into play on the field. And like, I think we've kind of seen that with the Raiders too, with releasing John Brown. So there are reasons to like Bryan Edwards. The problem is I think that other people will like Bryan Edwards too. It's a game where we need to find ways to save salary because we want Lamar, Derek Carr, Darren Waller, all those guys together, $8,000 left. You're probably not getting Henry Ruggs. I mean, you could, but like, I think people will see the salary savings on Bryan Edwards down at 75, I think. Yeah, $7,000 and be like, okay, I will take the discount, go with Edwards over Ruggs, but like Ruggs is fun. And they've talked a lot about him too, trying to generate less, more high percentage touches for him this year. I feel like that's enticing to me. So I think that I do want to get Henry Ruggs in there just because I also, looking at the remaining guys, the Ravens, like Marlon Humphrey, like he's a big dude. And I feel like that's something that could be, he could, they can stick him on Bryan Edwards and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that Ruggs to me, because he's higher salaried specifically, is more enticing. I don't know if that's like stupid logic or what, but like, I do think that's what draws me towards Ruggs.
No, fair enough. And I just think that, we're going to see the Raiders try and get these guys acclimated. I mean, we're talking about high round draft picks and Ruggs and Edwards in and of itself. And then, if the defense does commit to Waller and trying to limit him because Jacobs is not 100%, it's not a great matchup for him and they're forced to throw. These guys are going to have to step up in some way, shape, or form to get on the field. Those are really, Hunter Renfrow, I think maybe you could talk yourself into a way where he's just kind of that security blanket for Derek Carr, bails him out of situations, flex spot only. It'll be tough for me to get there with these guys being healthy. But again, anything can happen on a single game slate. That's why we play it. And Hunter Renfroe could definitely be that guy. As I said, he was the most consistent wide receiver for Derek Carr in 2020.
Yeah, I think that he's interesting here. So we got Renfroe, Edwards, Duvernay. Cannon's probably going to be special teams only, so I wouldn't really consider him being part of this down here. We do have some other options. Foster Moreau is a touchdown dude. That's all he does is score touchdowns, like the Chris Carter of the Las Vegas Raiders, basically. Do you have any inclination towards any of these lower guys? Because I feel I know I was talking about how I want to get to Ruggs because of the salary, but Brian Edwards, 7,000. If you're looking for a straight up salary saver, not accounting for how popular they'd be, I feel Edwards does stand out. Anyone else standing out to you down there?
Yeah, no, I mean, sure, if you want to take a what the heck shot on some of these guys, I know that some people, shout out to my friend Ben Cummins on Twitter, who was asking me about Josh Oliver, who's now with Baltimore. There's no Nick Boyle, and they have been inclined to get somebody else at red zone looks. That's not a receiver, right? And when they get down there, so Josh Oliver could maybe be a guy who could be in play if you need the salary relief. But I think that, the kind of way you're building your teams, I don't think you really, I guess, yeah, if you're in that $7,000 range, you get these high studs out. You're looking at guys like Brian Edwards, Devin Duvernay. Anything lower than that, I think, is just getting a little bit too cute on a slate like this, where we can kind of project most of the production coming from the top players. But I probably won't be inclined to go lower than Brian Edwards' $7K salary on a slate like this.
Yeah, Duvernay was with the team all last year, and they still had the motivation to go out and get Sammy Watkins and all those guys. And I like Duvernay coming out of college because he's this fast dude. Had some decent production at times at Texas and stuff like that, but I think that their actions this offseason tell us that they're not super into Devin Duvernay as being a legit option there. Monroe, you're hoping for a touchdown, that's it. I agree. If you are trying to, get projectable volume in there, Edwards is kind of the floor. The one way you can look at this, because we do want to leave some salary on the table here because we're trying not to have duplicated lineups and stuff like that. Maybe you just get a couple of guys down here and leave salary on the table that way. So you get Edwards in there. Maybe you check out Watkins, who you talked about. And then, so we're at 14,000 left. Maybe you go with a Marquise Brown and leave 4,000, something like that, and just go, something of that nature. So you can just still have that floor of Brian Edwards and still keep salary on the table in that way. So I feel that's the way to go here. I know Aaron had asked about backing up Tyson Williams. I think it'll be Latavius just because, he's fresh. He's been in camp. Le'Veon hasn't. And again, Trenton Cannon historically has been just a special teams guy outside of Madden 15 when he was in the Jets and he was fast. So I'd make him first in the depth chart. So Trenton Cannon, outside of that, probably not doing a whole lot as an actual running back, but I feel I'm probably not going to be super inclined to take shots at Latavius. I think it's kind of just Tyson Williams there, but I don't know. Are you differing there at all? Are you going at Latavius at all?
No, I mean, yeah, maybe when they get down into the red zone, we could be frustrated and see him, get some work there. I do think that it is interesting when you're talking about what the scenario would have been, right, Jim, with Dobbins and Edwards. If both of those guys are healthy, those guys are in some type of timeshare. They have liked to rotate backs out in the past. And when Mark Ingram was there, now he's gone. And they've just always kind of rotated guys in. Now these guys, again, are coming off the street. So I'm not willing to put my hard-earned money necessarily on somebody else. But if I was going to, I would say Latavius Murray and just hope on a red zone, a couple touches in the red zone where he can convert that into money. I see that Manuel also in the chat from Facebook on us talking about Hunter Renfroe plays for the Red Sox. Well, yes, if you're talking about with an E, he does, but with the W, we're looking at the guy for the.
He doesn't play for the Red Sox. He hits dingers. That's not playing. He just hits dingers.
He has dingers. And speaking of dingers, I know that we're going to let you go do the MLB show.
Yeah.
So everybody who's here, if you guys are playing MLB DFS, you got to stay with the GOAT, Jim Sonis, and he could do your Q&A for MLB DFS. But just before we leave, Jim, I just wanted to talk about, so Sammy Watkins, first touchdown score on the FanDuel Sportsbook. That's plus 1,200. I do like getting some action on that. That could be interesting. And then Mark Andrews, I believe, is plus 850 to score 2 touchdowns. So I put some action on that as well.
Okay, I like these. This is fun. If anyone on the Ravens going to do it, I feel like Mark Andrews is your right bet. They have Lamar plus 500, which means he is 5-1 to score 2 rushing touchdowns, which again, I'm not betting that, but that shows you how freaking crazy this guy is. And then you said the other one
scored.
What was the first touchdown score?
Scored first touchdown.
Oh, Sammy, you said. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Sammy, yeah. Sammy plus 1,200. I was just gonna say I love looking at that type of stuff too, Jim, because 5-1, like that's very. They're saying that there's a high frequency of that actually happening, even though it's 5-1, and so that just makes me more inclined to have Lamar at MVP and just figure out the flex spots.
Yeah, exactly. But I appreciate the Sammy Watkins 12-1, Ryan. Good luck with that. I hope that the Mark Andrews 2 tutties comes through for you as well. And I am looking forward to talking with you again in the very near future on the show. Good luck tonight.
Sounds good, my friend. Good luck with MLB. I'll be listening.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Follow Ryan on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. Check him out. He'll be here every Monday. He's going to be hosting this Monday Night Football preview every Monday. You're on the FanDuel Live Q&A with a rotating host with him as well. So again, follow Ryan on Twitter. Get those bets in the Sammy Watkins first touchdown score as well. Let's talk now some MLB for today. I see DJ is already in the chat looking at some baseball stuff. DJ, I know you're asking about defensive players. I don't know them. You were asking about players who use defensive players. I steadfastly avoid IDP leagues. I'm terrible at them. So there are a lot of cool people on Twitter who do IDP. I don't know it very well, though. So I'm sorry, DJ. I have let you down. My bad. DJ is asking, would you go a 4-5-6 Met stack with Boston's Rodriguez as your pitcher? I do like Eduardo Rodriguez. Also, welcome to the FanDuel Live Q&A. Get your questions in no matter where you're watching. I do like Eduardo Rodriguez as pitcher. So to me, I think he's number 2 behind Sandy Alcantara for tonight. So I do like Rodriguez. As far as the Mets, they're facing Adam Wainwright. And Adam Wainwright is a very, very good pitcher. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, but suppresses hard contact, keeps the ball on the ground. Mets offense not that great. So DJ, I'd probably be looking elsewhere for stacks. Now, I will say, stacking is pretty difficult for tonight because there aren't a lot of great ones we want to turn towards. If we look at the hitting tab over here, you're going to see that like there's not a lot of stuff that's popping over here, especially for like good offenses. So we are stacking some teams in kind of risky spots, stuff like that. But I feel like for me, if I'm going to stack a team in a risky spot, I'd rather have them facing a pitcher who lets up a lot of hard contact versus a pitcher who gets a lot of ground balls but doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. So to me, not going at Wainwright, but I do think that it is a slate where we have to get a little bit uncomfortable with our stacks. As far as which stacks I am good with for today, I do think the Cardinals facing Rich Hill are, a team that I'm willing to go towards. Hill, low strikeout guy, lets up fly balls. He also, like Wainwright does, suppress hard contact, but because he's letting up fly balls as opposed to ground balls, I do think that is a situation where we can go there. So I like the Cardinals a pretty decent amount. I like the Red Sox, and I do like the Astros. I saw Diffuse over on YouTube was talking about that Rangers-Astros game. They like that game if the roof stays open. I would not assume that it will. I see that I put down here the temperature is 84. It's probably going to be 70. I should have put 70. They tend to skew towards keeping the roof shut. So I kind of am assuming that it is shut for tonight, but that's an assumption. Maybe that's different. They tend to announce that they're like president of baseball operations, I think, tweets out when the roof is open / closed. So find him on Twitter. I don't recall his name off the top of my head, but pretty good Twitter follow. If you search Globe Life Field Roof, that will probably pop up on Twitter, but just follow that guy because he tweets it out. I do think that the Astros are fine overall, though, because they're facing what will effectively be a bullpen game for the Rangers because Spencer Howard doesn't go super deep into games. Howard went 23 pitches last time out in his 4 appearances with the Rangers. I think it's 4. He's gone 45, 44, 52, and 23 pitches. Then they go to the bullpen. Rangers bullpen's not terrible. Like, they're not the worst bullpen on the planet, but they're also not like a shutdown team either. So I think that we can feel pretty good about going at the Astros here against what is effectively a bullpen game. So Diffuse, I agree with you on the Astros side. On the Rangers side, I think that individual batters are okay. I just have a really tough time stacking the Rangers because they don't have a lot of guys who actually hit for power. That's the trouble I get to, is trying to identify 4 players on that Rangers team who I can reasonably project hit for power. So Garcia, Lowe, Peters, all those guys are fine. Full stamp of approval for me. I think that is totally okay. Good to go with them. It's just hard for me to get to a 4th person who I think will hit for power on that team. Broadly, I am okay targeting Jake Odorizzi with stacks and opposing batters. So it's oopsies. Oh no, did I click it? Boo. Boo, Jim. Let's go back over here and go down to Texas and sort by plate appearances. These are versus righties. Okay, Tavares does get some stolen bases. Can hit for some power. Hasn't been very good versus righties overall. So I'm not super jazzed about going there. We've got Kiner Falefa. Steals a lot of bags, but no power for the most part. Nick Solak back. 141 ISO. 6 stolen bases. That's not terrible. So potentially you could build out like a 4-player stack here. Let's put Alcantara in there. Let's get Peters. Peters, I think, is the biggest lock in terms of the Rangers for tonight. Let's put Lowe in there. And who was the other guy I was talking about here? Garcia. Oopsies. Adolis Garcia. Let's do that. And we're at 30-80 left. That's not too bad. Maybe you go at Solak and hope that, the stolen base stuff plays out. Put him at second base. That's not bad. 31-25 left. That could work. So I think that's okay. The Rangers are a team I'm willing to stack. I would not stack them on a fuller slate, but this is not a full slate. It's pretty rough stacking slate. So I do think that it's fine. I can't get super jazzed about a team that bad. That low power, I should say, in terms of stacking them. DJ is asking, do I like the red hot Lane Thomas for tonight? Let's see here. Is he in the lineup? He is batting leadoff against Alcantara. No. Alcantara, tremendous. Very good pitcher. Use him as a pitcher. No, don't want to use him. Kyle, do you think Gavin Lux plays tonight? I need a low salary guy, but I hate using the value plays with the late night games. The Dodgers are the worst in that sense. It seems like their lineups are constantly out late. I would probably bet not. Let's pull up the recent lineups here for the Dodgers. Try to make some assumptions based on that. Actually, it looks like Lux has been playing. Okay, so he's been in there the past 3 days. So probably will be in there. And he played against lefty as well. He's facing Zach Gallen, though. I know I got a question from Houston, from Aaron, asking about a Houston or a Dodger stack. I'm not personally as inclined towards the Dodgers because I respect Zach Gallen a lot. Gallen, this is over his past 9 starts with more fastballs, 26% strikeout rate. That's about the same as Logan Gilbert, but Gilbert has worse batted ball data than Gallen does. So personally, I'm not looking towards the Dodgers, which means that I'm going to be lower on Lux as well. I don't mind a one-off from the Dodgers on this slate where we don't have like a lot of good stacks. So maybe Lux could be that guy as a salary saver for you, but I don't really want to be super high on them because I do respect Gallen quite a bit. Aaron, Gallen has managed the Dodgers, but how well will he be at Los Angeles? Good question. Because there are some pitchers who have fairly extreme home road splits. Let's dig in here to Gallen a bit more and check out what he's been doing recently when he's been on the road. Because the Diamondbacks as a team struggle a little bit when they're not in Arizona. So, okay, we do have a couple recent starts here for Gallen. One of those was in Coors. I'm pretty sure he beasted out in that game. In the Coors game, 9 strikeouts across 7 innings. That's pretty sick. At the Phillies, 2 earned runs across 5 innings with 6 strikeouts. At the Giants, 5 earned runs. So there's some light there. And at the Cubs, that was before the trade deadline, so that makes sense. But when he was facing the Dodgers on the road, or at home, I should say, 8 strikeouts there. So his road starts haven't been terrible, especially recently. That Coors game, very good. Obviously, the Dodgers a different beast. I would say facing the Dodgers in LA is tougher than facing the Rockies at Coors. I'm not sure if that's like a hot take, but I still think that Gallen has shown me enough where I have decently high expectations for him for tonight. I'm not saying don't stack the Dodgers, because as you can see here, Gallen can trip up. He let up 7 runs to the Cubs, 5 to the Giants. Both those were on the road. So trip ups can happen, but I don't know if they're necessarily like the highest probability thing. So I'm okay being lower on the Dodgers. I'm not going to write them off though. So if your process led you towards them, sweet, go for it. They're not a cross off. Very few teams are cross offs on this slate, but they're not one that stand out for me. Diffuse says, I feel like the Rangers never keep the roof open. They don't. It's annoying. I hate it. It's why their park is bad. I wish they would keep things open. Houston does the same thing. So I wish more teams would keep the roof open. I get it, but why do you have a roof if you're not going to keep it open? Or a retractable roof, I should say, if you're not going to keep it open. Diffuse is asking for priorities within the Astros stacks. So I think that we want guys who can be good against both righties and lefties, because I do expect this game to be one where we do see lefties out of the pen pretty early for the Rangers. Kyle Tucker is batting 5th. I think he is a priority because he's very good, and he can hit both righties and lefties. I know he's a lefty, but he hits lefties well too, and I think he can steal against lefties as well. So let's pull up the salaries here for the Astros. I haven't refreshed this in a while, so let's refresh this to see if we can get some new stuff loaded in and get the batting orders loaded in here for these teams. I see that Myers is batting 7th. He's a guy who can hit both righties and lefties, to an extent at least. He's not a world beater by any means. Alex Bregman hitting the ball better recently, has not translated into results as of yet, but he's been hitting the ball well. I think eventually that's gonna play out here. No Michael Brantley. Let's check out the Astros numbers here. Wasn't going to use Brantley anyway, but I'll take it. Moves other guys up in the order, so it's at least impactful either way. I know Kyle asked about McCormick too, or asked about Myers. So let's pull up the numbers here for the Astros versus righties. Siri just got called up, so let's pull up in this here. I'll get back to Myers in a second for you, Kyle, but I do want to check out Siri here just for a second. See if he's actually in the FanDuel player pool first. He is. Sweet. Okay. Minimum salary for Jose Siri. Let's see what we got here for him. Once it loads, man, it's a little slow because I've been running this computer for 6.5 days now, it feels like. 235 ISO in AAA. He had 24 stolen bases. That's awesome. I love it. Let's go Jose Siri over Jake Myers. Let's check out Jake Myers' numbers versus righties first, though. 129 ISO, sick. Let's do it. So let's go Siri. Luckily, I don't have an iPhone, so when I say Siri, nothing's popping up because I have a Google Pixel, so this one's not going to bother me at all. But if I keep saying Siri, maybe your Apple stuff will get mad at me. So we'll just keep doing it. Siri. Let's go Siri in there, $3,200. Siri. Let's get Tucker in there again as a semi-priority. Let's say full priority for tonight. Yordan Alvarez can hit both righties and lefties. Probably going to be pretty high salary. Let's just check out the salaries here on the Astros. Altuve. Oh, Alvarez is way too low salaried. Let's take that. Bregman 42, pretty high. Maybe you go Myers and Siri to save some salary. I think you can get to Correa. So let's put Correa in there. I feel like this is a pretty good stack on the Astros. It does mean using guys lower in the order, but they're all pretty good. So I think this is a good stack on the Astros personally, and I'm down to use it. So let's go with this for the priorities for the stacks of use. I think Siri is a good value play. Siri. Jerry, good day, Jim. So I like Houston or St. Louis. Oh, Houston, St. Louis. I thought I was hallucinating. Houston, St. Louis, and the Mets. How would you rate them and stack them? I love the Cardinals. I like the Astros. Not as into the Mets because Adam Wainwright is hashtag good at baseball. So I would say St. Louis 1, Houston 2 among those, Jerry. Let's check out the Cardinals lineup because I've not seen that one yet. Molina's in there, sick. Edmonds in there, sick. O'Neill, awesome. This is a great lineup. Okay, we're in good spirits here with the Cardinals. I'm going to put Molina in there first. I'm going to put Edman in there after that because I want to save some salary. Wrong team. Dummy. There we go. And let's put Edman at second base preferably to get that in there. Okay. Then the question is, do we go with any of these like other dudes or do we go with like the actual good players? I'm probably going to go O'Neill because I think that his upside is sick. Let's do that. $3,200. No objections from me. And then can we justify going like Sosa or do we go with Arenado, Goldschmidt, one of those guys instead? I feel like it depends on your second stack. Like if you're going Astros for your second stack, you probably want to go for one of the lower salary guys. Okay, let's check out Sosa, Carlson, Bader, and see if we can justify any of them. I'm pretty sure Sosa actually has decent numbers against lefties in terms of power, which is weird because he doesn't really have that versus righties. So across 69 plate appearances, nice. 183 ISO for Sosa. Bader's at 185. Could be worse. Carlson's at 145. Not as powerful. Sosa, let's actually just dig in here on Sosa really quick. See if we can justify him as an option. Okay. So barrel rate across his full year is 4% for Sosa. In AAA back in 2019, so a couple years ago, 174 ISO. It's not the worst profile, I'll say that. Doesn't put the ball in the air a ton. So I think that if you're looking to like really save salary and you want to kind of go a bit more aggressive with your second stack, I am okay with using Sosa. Let's check out Bader's salary first. $2,500. Actually, should probably just go Bader. I think both Bader and Sosa are in play when stacking St. Louis. So like if you want to go with Tucker and get to Bregman, et cetera, I'm okay going with Sosa in there to make that easier to get to. So Sosa, Bader, both okay. If you can get to Arenado or Goldschmidt, I'd like to, but I would say the first two guys to turn to for me with St. Louis, because I'm using Alcantara at pitcher, probably going to go to Molina first, followed by Edman after that. Aaron, is Howard worse versus right-handed batters? So again, I don't think he's going to be in there that long because he goes probably 20 to 50 pitches tonight. So I'm not sure it matters too much. That's why I want guys who are good against both righties and lefties in terms of the Astro stack for today. DJ, can you show me a Padres Blue Jays stack that you would recommend while using Rodriguez as pitcher if possible? Let's go over here and check out. I do think that the Blue Jays are fine. They're facing, it'll likely be, whoopsies. I forgot to replace Rasmussen in there. Let's go over here. I knew it did Yarbrough over here. Let's copy this. And let's go over here. And let's do this. Okay. There we go. Now we get Yarbrough in there. I think the Blue Jays work because Yarbrough, low strikeout guy, lets up fly balls. The reason I'm not like rushing to stack them is because Yarbrough does such a good job of suppressing our contact. So the Blue Jays work. Very okay with that. Padres facing a bullpen game for the Giants. Their bullpen's pretty good, and they've been pretty good in those bullpen games. So I would say lower on the Padres. Let's check out the Blue Jays here, just for funsies, to see what we can do with them, because I do think that they're in play. Springer's playing again. Kirk is batting 6th. Grichuk batting 8th. So let's keep Alcantara in there and check out a Blue Jay stack, probably putting Kirk in there. Been doing it plenty recently, so why not keep the band together? Grichuk at $2,600. Okay, that's not too bad. We can work with this. Teoscar is $4,200. Let's do it. We're getting pretty tight after that, so it means I'm probably going to settle for someone else for the other option. Problem is they're all around 4,000. I like Gurriel, and I think he's been really good recently. Just hard for me to go to Gurriel when I could go up $100 more for Springer. See what he's done since he came back from that knee injury. Most recent knee injury, I should say. Oh, yeah. He had a dinger, so we're good. Let's put Springer in there. 2750 left is tough. We could put Eben at second base, Molina at a catcher/utility. You can make that work. So I would say this is probably where I'd want to go. If you can get to Vlad, like if you're going with, let's put Rodriguez in there at pitcher, and you've got the ability to go nuts, go nuts. Let's put Rodriguez there. Let's put Vlad at third base. You can do that sick. Do it. I'd even lop off Grichuk or Kirk in that situation. Let's do that and go with Semien. At second base, you can do that. And 2675 is probably tough, but like, I think he can do it. So get some Rodriguez lineups in there with like the situation where you just go nuts in terms of like the Blue Jays batters in your stack, but I do think you can stack them with Alcantara as well. DJ's asking about Valera for some salary savings. He is, I think, minimum salary for the Blue Jays for today. Probably not going to do it. I don't mind Kevin Smith because I've seen some good numbers out of him in the minors, but he's not in there for today. So if we're talking about like just the punty type option or type options for the Jays, let's pull up the larger sample here for Valera and see if we can talk ourselves into him, because it'd be a lot easier if we could. Nope. Not enough power for me. So I would say no to Valera, but I do think Kirk and Grichuk work in terms of salary savings. Aaron says, so you're saying I should bet that St. Louis over then? Thanks. Let me know the number, Aaron. Very curious about it. I would bet that in general, the answer is probably yes, but I do want to hear it first because sportsbooks ain't run by dummies, and they might be onto the same thinking here where I think that Rich Hill's results are better than his peripherals. And as a result of that, I want to stack against him. But sportsbooks, no data. So Aaron, plop that implied total number, the team total number with the juice in the chat. If you get a second, I'll take a look at that one. But just want to be checking to make sure I'm not giving out bad info based on not knowing the number. Never make a bet without knowing the number. It's just a really bad, thing in general. So I'm trying to avoid that. So Aaron, once you get the chance, let me know their number and the juice on the over and the under for the Cardinals there. I'm a bot. Are you a bot? You sound like not a bot. Would you trade AB for Najee Harris? Yes. I know we're in the middle of the fantasy baseball chat, but yes, give me Najee Harris no matter what. I'm a bot. Go get him. DJ, the great baseball name of Yoel Pozo. Let's see where he's at here. Okay. I'm going to admit, don't know a whole lot about Mr. Pozo. So let's dig in here. See what we got on him. $2,300. Okay. For the Rangers. Facing Odorizzi. Oh, okay. So Aaron's looking at the total for that game at 8. I would be Aaron, pull up the team total for the Cardinals if you can. Because I don't want the over on that full game because I think that the Mets could struggle against Wainwright. So I want the total on just the Cardinals by themselves. Pozo, okay, 24 years old, got some youth, 19 dingers in AAA. That's not bad, DJ. That's not bad. 271 ISO. Okay, maybe I was too dismissive of this Ranger stack. Maybe it's not the worst idea on earth. Low strikeout rate. It's not bad. It's not bad. I'll say that. It's not bad. Although 69 plate appearances in the majors, 38% hard hit rate, 38% fly ball rate, hasn't shown a ton of power in the majors yet, so maybe we don't want to go there, but hey, it's a good matchup with Odorizzi. It's a small slate. DJ, I don't think it's bad. DJ, for you specifically, if you're stacking the Rangers, get DJ Peters in there first, just for the name correlation. I feel like if there's a person named Jim, I am like 16 times more likely to use them. So get the DJ Peters in there first and then check out Pozo. I think that would work. Aaron says 3.75. So that's their implied total based on the bookmaker info. If you go to whatever your sports book is, usually if you check out like the more markets, there'll be a market in there for like the team total and it'll be like 4.5 or something like that. I would guess for the Cardinals for today, it's probably the total is probably 4.5 with the over juiced at like plus money to a certain extent. If it's over 4.5, like decently plus money, I'd be inclined to take that against Rich Hill. The Cardinals better versus lefties, 111 WRC plus, 200 ISO for them versus lefties and a 39% fly ball rate. I think they can do pretty well here. So I do like the Cardinals for tonight. Maybe 4.5 is too high. I don't know. Maybe it'll be 4 or even, I don't think it'll be 3.5. I think that's probably too low, but I do think the Cardinals in general are pretty enticing as far as an over there. Okay. DJ says, anyone named Stubbs a bust? Do you agree? AKA Garrett Stubbs. No, I can't write someone off based on their name. I can only write them up based on their name. So like, we're only bumping dudes up based on name. Unless it's like, There are some that are kind of like concerning for names, but I think stubs are okay. Stubs are fine. Anything else in this slate? Okay, so Yu Darvish we've not talked about yet. I do think that he is in play as a pitcher. Don't really want to get there because like he's kind of struggled. The Giants are very good, but I do think in terms of trying to find some guys who have a path to being the highest scoring guy in the slate, Darvish is one of those pitchers. So to me, the pitching landscape for tonight is Alcantara number 1, Rodriguez number 2, Darvish number 3. And I think that it's kind of just those 3 guys. I mentioned Paulo Espino's being a guy like you could talk yourself into. I'm not going to get there. I think that we could check out some Marlins dudes. Let's check out the Marlins lineup here really quick while we're here, just for funsies. Okay, so we got Jazz in there. That's good. Sanchez, and we have Diaz. I would say that's a pretty good one to go with. So I'm on board with a 2-4-6 stack on the Marlins. If you want like a 4th guy, Brinson would probably be my preferred choice out of those guys, but I think a 3-player stack of Chisholm, Sanchez, and Diaz, that could be pretty fun for tonight as well. That is all that we've got here for today on the FanDuel Live Q&A, but we are back once again tomorrow with the same schedule. NFL at 4, the MLB Q&A at 4:30. Tomorrow, our waiver wire Q&A with myself and JJ Zachariason is back. Did that last year, the past 2 years, actually. Taking your questions live on air and answering them, answering your questions about Elijah Mitchell, pickups week number 2. That is at 4 p.m. on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. So make sure you are subscribed there. Hit that follow button. Swing back tomorrow at 4 for that, 4:30 for the MLB Q&A. Big thank you to Ryan Williams for joining me earlier on. You can find him on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. We are cheering for Sammy Watkins for the first touchdown for tonight for Ryan, and also Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns. If I had to pick, I feel like I would be more inclined toward the Mark Andrews 2 touchdowns as being the one that I think is more likely. Andrews, just a beast, as we talked about. So we're rooting for Sammy, rooting for Mark Andrews. Maybe we get Sammy first and then get Mark the next 2. Maybe we can do that one. Figure that out. But again, follow Ryan on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. He'll be here with you every Monday for this year to host the Monday Night Football preview. Big thank you to Joy Affleck, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Joy, as always. If you've got more questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. Good luck to all of you tonight. Have fun with your DFS lineups. Enjoy Monday Night Football. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow for the Waiver Wire Q&A. This has been the FanDuel Live Q&A.